Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Deja Vu here, coming back with I guess this would be the 6th set of SKT and KT Roster. In the last set, Flash trying to either go for a reverse all kill or a reverse 3 kill, something like that. And he took down Bisu so fast, beat him in something like 10 minutes or so. Really, the game was over after about 7 minutes, 8 minutes. And Bisu was able to hold out for another 2 or so. So Flash coming out with a very nice early game strategy, went for that very fast expansion, got the 4 tanks out, and just did a nice push there with those 4 tanks. And yeah, that really caught Bisu by surprise, and Bisu unable to fight a retreat effectively backwards, and he falls. And the worst part about that for SKT1 is that was a short freaking game. Wow, was that a short game. Yeah, Flash, I'm sure, is not tired at all from a 10-minute game. It probably doesn't even, like, phase him at all. And yeah, it does look like Flash is going for a reverse all-kill here. We do see that there at the corner of your screen. On the right side, you can see how it's gone kill, 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 kill on the right. So, should be pretty cool here. And it looks like this map is New Tornado. Just looking at it, I think that this is New Tornado. We are going to have Flash in the bottom right in orange, Fantasy in the bottom left in purple. So could be very, very cool. Fantasy and Flash, Fantasy, Flash, Sky High, and Firebat Hero. Those 4. If those 4 in any sort of combination are playing a TVT, there's such a chance for the most epic TVTs ever. I'm talking like 30-minute wars, huge epic battles. Those 4 in particular, I think, just have the best games in TVT. So I'm really excited for this. I think this could be very, very fun to watch. And normally TVTs can be kind of boring. You know, if you watch like Puma versus Piano, I bet you that would be pretty boring to watch. But this is Flash and Fantasy, 2 of the top TVTers around, 2 of the top Terrans around. So definitely a lot of potential for some great games, and that's what Winners League does for you. It pits the best players against each other, and that is always awesome. Looks like both players going for really standard builds. Obviously, this is a 4-player map, so even if you wanted to cheat, even if you wanted to pull some shenanigans, it would be really tough to do so at this stage in the game, going for like proxy Raxes or something. Like, I don't even think Toss Girl would go proxy Raxes on New Tornado. She could try, but I don't even think that she would be dumb enough to try something like that. Isn't really viable on 4-player maps. So if there is going to be kind of an early game strategy for Miley's players, it could be something like a 2-fac or 2-port rate. Something like that would be the cheesier route if either player is going to go for a cheesy route. We do have 1 factory up right now coming up for Flash, and it looks like he's taken a couple SCVs there off of gas, and it looks like Fantasy has not. He's kept his 3 SCVs on gas here, so we'll see what. We're going to have a little bit of a differentiation here in the builds. We'll see exactly what happens, and who's actually going to go for. See if one of these players goes for maybe more of an early game build versus an economic build, and see how that turns out here. We have a couple Marines coming out for both players, going to try and stop the scout. Fantasy will be effective in stopping that scout. Flash's scout went in the wrong direction, and it looks like Flash was able to get a Marine on his ramp, and I guess 1 Marine on that ramp is actually enough to hold that against an SCV, so he's going to be okay, good to go there. And we got Fantasy throwing down that 2nd factory, so that's why we saw those extra SCVs on the gas. He's going to try and pump off of 2 factories and try and take this early. And I gotta say that I don't really like this. I don't like early game builds when someone's trying to do a reverse all kill. You don't need to do it. You need to play longer games and try and wear your opponent down. It's just and against a guy like Flash, I mean, do you really... Well, I guess there's no really good time to hit Flash. I can't think of it. He's good at cheesing. He's good in the long games. He's good at micro. I guess he's good at everything. But if strategically speaking, once again, I would say I would prefer longer macro games in this kind of a position. But he's choosing not to. He's going to try and end it early. Going to try and catch Flash by surprise, whereas Flash is doing an expansionary build here, because Command Center is going down inside of his base. We'll see if Fantasy's effective here. Throwing down a 2nd machine shop. So I wonder if this is going to maybe be a ton of vultures with double upgrades, or if he actually is even going to produce a lot of tanks here. See what comes out. And we do have a floating Rex coming into the area, and that's going to float in and actually going to be able to see the 2 factories if he's willing to send it the rest of the way. We'll see if he is. There's 4 Marines here picking at it. If he sends that barracks in, it would probably die, so he's got to be careful, and he is actually going to pull it back, so he is not going to see the factories. At most, all he maybe saw was the 1 machine shop, which is not at all out of the ordinary, so it doesn't give him a lot of information yet. He didn't see a command center built on that ledge there, but that really doesn't confirm very much for him. He doesn't really know a lot right now, Flash, so he's kind of big time in the dark. Both of these players are really in the dark, and Flash is going to lose that barracks, I think. It's at about 150 health and floating over water, and yeah, he's going to need to get an SCV down there to the 6 o'clock position and try and start repairing it ASAP. It looks like that's where he's sending an SCV right now. And an SCV for Flash is going to get a scout, and I think it actually might be able to sneak in, and we've got it. It's coming in, and oh, is it going to see the SCVs? Oh! Yeah, I think it did see. I think it saw a couple of the SCVs pulled. It saw the 3 tanks out, and the only way that there's going to be 3 tanks out for Fantasy is if he went for the double factory build, and Flash has to know this. He already has the second factory coming up. He has to know that this is coming. Setting up by that chrysalis to establish the defense here, and he's gonna try and play a little bit of a micro game and try and hold this ramp right here, this broad ramp. Gonna try and play a little bit of a delaying action, get a second factory up, and start to defend with more units here. And it looks like we got a couple SCVs coming in here as cannon fodder. We got Marines as cannon fodder, and the 3 tanks in the back. If they can get in range for Fantasy, Fantasy needs to use those tanks. What is he doing? Fantasy not having very good control here. Some very poor control by Fantasy, working his way up that ramp. Tanks just going in the wrong direction on a couple of occasions, but he is actually going to be able to get up here to the outside ramp of Flash. He's going to be able to take down that bunker. He's going to be able to establish somewhat of a contain here, but it's going to be tough for him to really push in. If he pushes in here, he's going to lose his tanks. Oh, wow, yeah, loses 1 tank to the tanks of Flash, and his 2 factory ploy has been slaughtered here already. I think he might be just about, in real big trouble. He might be at slaughter here. This is really bad for Fantasy. A couple vultures coming in for Flash are going to get right into the tanks here, and the tanks for Fantasy are all going down, and Fantasy's ploy has failed. Fantasy is going to lose this game. His expansion is not up. Flash is up. Fantasy is done. Fantasy is completely done. A very short TVT. Last time Fantasy and Flash met, it was on, unless they had another game that I didn't see, it was on Neo Moonglaive, and they kind of went for a longer game, and Flash caught Fantasy by surprise when Flash kind of stopped expanding through a couple factories down a little bit faster than Fantasy did, and started macroing his army faster earlier than Fantasy did, and Fantasy was still throwing up expansions, and he was able to catch Fantasy by surprise and really just annihilated Fantasy. The game went on for a while, and then suddenly Flash just came out with a ton of units, and Fantasy couldn't fight it off, and he was forced to GG so quickly. And this time Flash has essentially won the game here early on, and Fantasy is staying in it for the usual Winners League purposes, but there's just really no way he's coming back here. And there's a Wraith from Flash too, so now if he's just having fun, he's going to start producing Wraiths, and there's just no way that Fantasy can both put on the pressure he needs to fight off of 1 base versus 2 base and combat Wraiths, and he's forced to GG. So Flash gets 2 early wins here. The first he won because he chose to win it early, went for that 4 tank for push. In the second game, he wins early because Fantasy was not able to pull off a 2 factory attack, and Flash was able to defend expertly. Fantasy's push up that ramp was very poor, and Flash is going to have 3 kills now, so he's got 1 more to go. We've got 1 more game here, best of 7, 7th game coming out here in the Winners League, SKT versus KT WL G6P1. I'll see you all in the final match.